Now, we're just 2.5 weeks until the start of the Premier League season. The transfer window is in full flow, isn't it, James Savundra? I'm pleased you're joining me to discuss all the latest news. And, I mean, what's huge news to start with? Granit Xhaka on his way to Sunderland.
Very eye-catching, this deal, isn't it? Sunderland have really pushed, and they've got their man. We understand the fee is £13 million plus £4 million in add-ons, a significant fee, you'd say, for a 32-year-old who's also going to sign a 3-year contract. Sunderland confirming that deal and that fee with Bayer Leverkusen today. Now, Sunderland upped their total offer by £7 million to get this deal done. They really wanted to bring in Granit Xhaka, all that experience to get them into the Premier League and keep them in the Premier League. They're there now, but it's been a long time away. They need to stay there, and someone like Xhaka can really help them. What is fascinating about this is he left Arsenal 2 years ago. He had a really successful spell there, wanted to head to Bayer Leverkusen, had 2 really successful seasons there. Erik ten Hag, now the manager at Bayer Leverkusen, a really interesting quote from him during pre-season, because he said that we've already lost 3 very important players. We know some of those in the Premier League already. We won't let any more go. So we wait to see how happy Erik ten Hag feels about this, losing a key player just on the eve of the new season. But for Sunderland, this is a great bit of business, albeit an expensive deal they've done. But I think they'll feel vindicated if they remain a Premier League club, if Granit Xhaka plays a role in keeping them there.
Yeah, they need that experience in the midfield. What a remarkable deal. Again, surprising considering Ten Hag's comments. Didn't want to let him go, but looks set to join Sunderland. Now, 2 England internationals, James, might be heading to Serie A and with Napoli. Who are they?
Yeah, Napoli are after a winger. They've been looking at Alejandro Garnacho in the past. These are the 2 players that could be potentially on their way to Italy, but they're on the list, but not quite the priority players. Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling. According to Sky in Italy, they're on the list of alternative wingers that Napoli are looking at in this transfer window. They're not the priority signings for them, but I think later on down the window, we could see moves for these 2 players, because they've clearly got very limited options at their current club. Raheem Sterling, before he joined Arsenal on loan, wasn't training with the Chelsea first team. Jack Grealish didn't even travel with the Manchester City squad for the Club World Cup, £100 million signing a few years back. Both players face very uncertain futures at their clubs, but both players still got significant contracts and 2 years left on those deals as well. We understand that Fulham are keeping an eye on the situation around Raheem Sterling, but they're pressing ahead with deals for Reece Nelson and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. But I think because of the contracts in mind and the fees and the wages involved, I do think that if any deals materialise, it would be later on down the window, because you'd think there'd have to be a significant compromise from these 2 players when it comes to wages and the clubs in the form of Chelsea and Manchester City in terms of any sort of fee.
Sometimes we forget there's so long left still in the window as well. Right, so one player may well depart Manchester City in this window, but Manchester City set to sign a player that they used to have previously.
James Trafford. There's been a lot of interest in him this season, considering what he did last season in a Burnley shirt. 27 clean sheets. They barely conceded a goal over the course of
isn't it?
46 matches in the Championship. So hot property. Newcastle wanted him. They agreed a deal with Burnley to buy him, but because Manchester City inserted a clause in his contract with the buyback, it means they're going to pay £27 million to re-sign him. He's set to begin his medical today at Manchester City. So another blow for Newcastle. They were powerless with this, because they could have paid no matter what they wanted, but because of that clause in the contract, he's heading back to Manchester City, which sets up a really interesting situation. Ederson, he has been injury-prone over the course of the last few seasons. Stefan Ortega stepped in on a number of occasions. He's expected to leave, Ortega, but no deal is close right now, so you could have 3 premium goalkeepers at City for pre-season. But what is going to be fascinating, who is going to be that City number 1 at the start of the new campaign? Will it be the youngster? Will it be the decorated Ederson, who's won so many trophies for Manchester City, but he's always been linked away over the course of the last few seasons? So that is going to be fascinating. James Trafford returning to Manchester City.
You're our fancy Premier League guru, so I'll be asking you that question on the eve of the start of the season, because City's number 1 might be something that fans might be looking at. Now, Liverpool, loads of talk about Liverpool. They've been so busy in the transfer window. Luis Diaz, on his way out, what's the latest?
He is, and this is really interesting, because over the course of the last few weeks, we've been briefed strongly that Luis Diaz is not for sale, but he is now expected to leave their pre-season tour in Tokyo right now and complete a move to Bayern Munich. The clubs have agreed a deal worth £65.5 million for a player who had 2 years left in his contract, 28 years of age. Liverpool had made clear to Bayern Munich that he was not for sale this summer. but they've reluctantly accepted this offer because they feel they've received full market value. It's a deal that Luis Diaz and his representatives had pushed for. He spoke to the media openly a month ago and said that his agents are speaking to other clubs. Well, Bayern Munich, where he's going to be heading, so from the English champions to the German champions, it's a deal he wanted. I think Liverpool, because of the situation, they couldn't tie him down to a new contract. We understand this broke over the course of the last 24 hours or so. Liverpool had pushed to try and extend his contract beyond those 2 years, but he was in that situation whereby he'd have gone for free in 2 years' time. They wouldn't have got that fee, around £65 million next summer. So reluctantly, after having his best season in a Liverpool shirt, he's set to head to Bayern Munich.
That's huge money as well for Luis Diaz, 28-year-old. Now, knock-on effect to a certain player and a certain striker we've been talking about all transfer window, likely going to continue to talk about Alexander Isak. What's that mean for Liverpool's pursuit of the striker?
Well, a lot of people talk about how much money Liverpool have spent in this transfer window. It's nearly £300 million. But when you look at the amount that they have brought in player sales over the course of the last two summer transfer windows and in January, £190 million. So that man, Alexander Isak, perhaps this becomes more realistic, bringing in money from Luis Diaz, because we understand that whilst Hugo Ekitike has come in, there is still that massive interest in Alexander Isak, and you can understand why. As for Isak himself, he's told Newcastle he wants to explore his options in this transfer window. So we wait to see if that interest that Liverpool still have materialises in a bid, because we know they contacted Newcastle. Newcastle made clear, not for sale. You've heard the figures, £120, £150 million. We wait to see what happens, especially if he makes clear he wants to leave Newcastle. At the same time, Newcastle clearly doing their due diligence and looking at options if Alexander Isak is to depart. One of those players, Benjamin Sesko, of course, Arsenal held an interest. Manchester United have an interest, but I don't think they can do a deal for Benjamin Sesko right now. And what we understand is that RB Leipzig are looking at that fee that Liverpool paid for Hugo Ekitike, which is worth up to £79 million. And they're going to use that as a benchmark in this transfer window if he's to leave, because they've told him you can depart. They're not playing in the Champions League next season, but clearly they want the fee for a player who's got an enormously high ceiling. And you can understand why most clubs in the Premier League, most clubs in Europe would want Benjamin Sesko because of the level that he can reach one day. But that looks like that's going to be the sort of price that Newcastle or other clubs may have to pay. They want to do a deal around £79 million. That's the benchmark they're looking at right now if Benjamin Sesko is to join a club this summer.
22 years old, I'm sure we'll hear more about him as well. Look, finally, interesting story emerging from Everton today. We know about Everton's financial struggles in the past, but they're having struggles in the market this summer.
Yeah, and really interesting to hear David Moyes be so open about this. He spoke to The Athletic saying really good players have turned down Everton. He also said he wants 10 signings in total this summer, which seems like a lot, but when you consider the number of players that departed in the summer with their contracts expiring, the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think they were really pleased to sign a number of players on new terms for this season and beyond, the likes of Seamus Coleman, the likes of Idrissa Gueye as well. But so far, it's just Tierno Barry who signed it as a senior player, £27 million, as a player that will come in and start matches. Of course, they've signed Mark Travers as well from Bournemouth. Charlie Alcaraz has signed, that loan has become permanent now. But it's a really interesting situation for Everton, and David Moyes clearly very frustrated the fact that players that aren't wanting to join Everton, this new project there with David Moyes back at the helm, a brand new stadium. You think all the enthusiasm around the new season in this new stadium, which looks incredible. Well, the fact is they lost 3-0 to Bournemouth. They lost to Preston, I think, last week as well. And they're struggling to sign players. So worrying times with just a couple of weeks ago before the start of the season for Everton.